Hello and welcome to computer class. My name is Dave and today we're talking about HTML forms. So navigate to w3schools.com and click on their HTML tutorial and then click on the HTML forms tab. Now, there's two things you got to know when we're talking about HTML forms. The first is that there's forms on essentially every website. And this is because people that create websites want to collect data, usually from users. So they want them to insert maybe their name or their email address or some sort of information so they can collect that information about them. The thing is, in order to collect this data, you have to run some sort of code on the server side of things, and therefore you would need to know probably a code language like PHP or something of the like in order to make this form fully workable. I'm saying that so you have prior knowledge that I'm just teaching the HTML side of things and I'm not giving you the entire story, if that makes sense. This is only 50% of it. Anyway, moving past that, there is one element right off the bat you need to create a form. You need to have the form container. So I'm going to add that to my spreadsheet, and basically that creates a form, obviously. All right, so form. This is the form container. And moving down, we have inputs, and they are things that you would obviously input into the form. Several types here. We've got a text-based one, allows a single line of text input field. A radio displays a radio button for selection. We're going to look through each one of these in a second. You've got a checkbox, so you can click it and it provides a check. A submit button, and then just a regular clickable button. So I'm going to grab all of these because these are all inputs to our forms. And we'll say form inputs. Next, we need a label, so I'm going to skip over that little illustration there and go to the labels element here. And the use of a label element in the example above, which is right here, the label tag defines a label in many form elements. The label element is useful for screen readers because screen readers will read out loud the label when the user focuses on the input element. And so basically, there are things that you couple with the label element. The for attribute should be required, so that is basically the same as the ID attribute, and it makes sure that this label has a connection to the rest of the form. Okay, so I'm just going to grab that line off of the text fields so that I have an example of a label here. And Control Z, I don't know why I deleted that. So we'll just grab that and we'll say label. Okay. Again, I'm not sure why it went to that color, but there we go. And usually the for attribute is used. You have to use it, in fact, and you would write, some sort of way to identify it, like L name, last name. It's an abbreviation here. Okay. That being said, so once you get that down, this is just a regular text one. It's how you input a text field. You would give your label, and you would say this is going to be the first name. That's what it's for. And notice when I click to try it myself, up here at the top, this is what it's for. This is the label, and then the input is actually underneath. The type is text. The ID is first name, the same as the for. The name is first name, and the value is John. That's what you want to show up in here. So that's kind of how it works. That being said, a radio button, very similar to that, but you would change the type to radio instead of to text. And then you have an ID, a name, and a value. See, these are all the attributes you have to couple with it. And again, the label here with the for, because the ID and the value are male, the for has to be male, and therefore that's what's going to show up there. And this is the option male, female, and other for you to select from those. Now you have to have a label for the button because otherwise there would be nothing here. So that's pretty important. And then checkboxes, you change the type to checkbox. Again, the ID would similarly connect with the for here, and also the name would be the same. The value would be whatever you want it to be. here is what is actually going to show up for the checkbox. So we have an input and a label. So the input is right here, the checkbox, but the label is actually after it, and that's how it's showing up. Moving down to the submit button, to get this one to work, you'll notice that they actually have pulled in here a page of PHP. And so when they click the submit button, it actually shows that the first name was submitted and the last name was submitted, so that this piece of code actually works on the server side. But that being said, the 4 is first name, and therefore the ID is also going to be first name. And here's the label. It's going to say first name. There it is right there. And then we have the input. Now down here at the bottom is actually the new piece of code, and the type is submit, and the value is submit, and therefore we have a submit button that shows up as a result. Moving down, that being said, I've hammered this kind of the entire time, but the name attribute, if it's omitted, nothing will be sent at all. So let me just scroll right back up to the top here, and notice name, pretty much all these, scroll down to another illustration here, have a name. If you don't have that in there, what they're saying is, back down to the bottom here, notice that in each input field you must have a name attribute to be submitted. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of the input field will not be sent at all. Very, very important that you have both of those in there. All right, so let's actually do this. Let's create ourselves a simple form. And what I'm going to do is I'll just put these side by side real fast. Create myself an index.html page by going to my brackets, hitting File New, File Save As, and saving it to my desktop as index.html. Now, obviously I could create a directory structure, but for the speed at which we want to do this today, we are going to let that go. All right, so let's give ourselves a doc type, HTML, and then we'll do HTML. Wow, can't spell today. And then we will give a head section, and then we will also give a body section. And in the head section, we'll just give it a title of form, just so we know what this page is about. And we're going to go ahead and throw in our form container. Okay. And there we go, we have it. All right, and now the label that we should put on this is going to have a 4 equal to f name, or first name, and we'll actually put in the value here first name, the colon, and this is getting to be a little bit difficult to see, so I'll pull it over. And then we are going to have, obviously, with that label, an input with a type equal to text. Let's give it an ID equal to f name, the same as the other one, and a name equal to f name, and then, lastly, a value equal to John. All right, and let's save that, load it up and see what happens. And there we have it. We have a very simple form that's being entered here. Save that again. And here we could change out and put in someone's name. Okay, so this isn't too hard to understand. I don't think doing these are fairly simple, whether it be putting a radio button in, or a checkbox, or a submit button, form container. Really, the submit button doesn't exactly fully work until you put the server side things in connection with it. However, as you can see, using forms is not that scary at all. It's really just knowing to use the label and the input and stack them on top of each other. All right, so hopefully you have liked the video, subscribed to the channel, and as always, I will see you in the next video.